It appears that organizations bankrolled by wealthy Americans and large corporations are mobilizing against a bipartisan agreement to boost IRS funding. So that's according to reports by Jake Johnson of Common Dreams. He writes, the proposed $40 billion increase in the IRS budget, which was cut by an estimated 20% between 2010 and 2018, is part of an infrastructure package negotiated by a bipartisan group of senators and President Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden, in his original push, wanted $80 billion in IRS funding. So that whole point was to, well, we're not going to raise taxes on the rich. We're actually going to have a lower tax rate than Obama, but a slightly higher tax rate than Donald Trump, somewhere in 28%. But don't worry, we're going to get revenue by cracking down on tax cheaters. Okay, well, now, again, his plan was to fund the IRS, so it would go after wealthy individuals. Now, the boost proposed by the bipartisan group was presented as a way to reduce the IRS tax gap, the difference between taxes owed and taxes collected by the federal government. That tax gap was last estimated by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen as around $7 trillion. So that's a lot of money that the government has missed out in collecting taxes. So now you don't have to guess who collecting those taxes would impact the most. In fact, last month, you may or may not remember, ProPublica had published a series of stories detailing the pervasive tax dodging by the rich and corporations. In fact, the report detailed how in 2007 and 2011, the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, paid nothing in federal income taxes. Just nothing. That's amazing. And in 2018, Tesla founder Elon Musk, the second richest person in the world, also paid nothing in federal taxes. And even when they did pay taxes, it turns out that they actually paid way less than you and I would as a percentage of their income. ProPublica found that the 25 wealthiest Americans only had a true tax rate of 3.4%. That's way less of an effective tax rate or a true tax rate than someone like myself or Warren Buffett's secretary, who also paid somewhere around a 0.9% or around a 1% true tax rate. So it's pretty obvious that rich people are massively getting away with not paying their taxes, not paying their fair share. Now, however, this money was meant to bolster, as I said, the IRS to make sure that they could have the funding to go after these tax cheats, right? Now, as the Washington Post reported on Wednesday, though, the IRS provision of the bipartisan infrastructure plan is, quote, drawing opposition from well-funded conservative groups, which are strongly opposed to expanding the reach of a tax collection agency that they have long alleged is politically motivated. Gee, I wonder why they think that. Politically motivated. Oh, wait, it's because wealthy conservatives have gamed the system on behalf of their donors. The donors donate to the Republican Party. That allows them to game the system. And so rich people win. And as a result, we don't get things like healthcare. We don't get things like infrastructure. We don't get all of that. And so they get to hoard their money. They get to be like Smog, and sit on a pile of gold while the rest of us face crumbling roads and bridges. That's insane. Obviously, we have to do something about it. But again, they don't want to because they want to sit there and continue to collect their money. In fact, among the conservative groups spearheading the opposition, the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. For who? Freedom Works, the Conservative Action Project, and the Leadership Institute. The Post also noted that they are preparing a letter that warns Republicans that should not negotiate with the White House unless they agree to no additional funding for the IRS. So they're saying, tank the bill, the bipartisan infrastructure, which already has way too many giveaways to conservatives as it is. And yeah, block it. Block it unless we defund the IRS. It's funny because I thought Republicans are in favor of supporting the police. I mean, that's what the IRS is, the police, but for rich people, right? And that's what it is. They want to remove the cops from the beat as long as it allows them to save money on their taxes. Yeah. Now, the groups are expected to send a letter to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is yet to endorse the bipartisan framework, of course, and had threatened earlier to give his Democratic counterparts a, quote, hell of a fight over infrastructure priorities. So, again, this is Republicans doing the same thing. I showed you the video of Chip Roy, who had talked about how we're just not going to agree to anything. We're going to stall. We're not going to work with the Biden administration. We're not going to do infrastructure. We're going to do nothing until the election. Or I should say, until we get back into power. And of course, what we're going to do when we get back into power is just give more tax cuts to rich people and then privatize industry. Again, one of the problems here in the bipartisan infrastructure bill is the fact that they had things like asset recycling, right? Which is a fancy way of saying we're going to sell off public assets, public infrastructure to corporations who will monetize it. That's what's going to happen here. So now, here's why we need the money in the IRS, all right? It turns out between 2010 and 2018, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, IRS audit rates for the biggest U.S. corporations and American millionaires fell by 51 and 61% respectively. And in 2019, ProPublica reported that due to inadequate funding and resulting staff shortages, the IRS now audits poor Americans at about the same rate as the top 1%. You know why? You know why they'd rather audit the poor than go after the rich? It's because the poor have no resources. And as far as wealthy taxpayer, or I should say wealthy tax cheats, they've got all this money and they go and they have an army of lawyers and they have all these legal tricks that they can do and this fancy accounting that they can basically skirt these tax laws and get away with not doing anything. And that's it. And so the rich can do that, the poor can't. So that's why the IRS is like, well, we don't have enough manpower to counter any of that stuff. So we're just going to go after poor people who can barely afford to pay anything. And here's the thing, again, regular people don't have the resources to fight against the IRS. I mean, theoretically, sure, I have access to all the lawyers and fancy accountants, the same ones that, wealthy conservatives do, tax cheats do. But it's not like I have the money to pay them to try to save money on my taxes, to shield my income from taxation. And that's like the difference. That is the big difference here. Okay? This disproportionately goes after the poor, targets the poor, and helps the rich. Which is why, of course, you have these right-wing groups that are spending tons of money fighting against the IRS. In fact, in May, Politico reported that right-wing groups launched a campaign of TV ads, social media messages, and emails to supporters criticizing Biden's proposal, and that's earlier proposal, to hire nearly 87,000 new IRS workers over the next decade to collect money from supposed tax cheats. According to the Post, the organizations leading the latest effort to prevent an IRS finding hike include those that have received funds from major conservative donors, including the Mercer Family Foundation, the Sarah Scaife Foundation, and the Donors Trust, a donor-advised fund that gives to conservative and libertarian causes. One signatory to the letter, Phil Kerpen of the American Commitment, worked 5 years for Americans for Prosperity, the main political arm of the Koch network. So understand, this is a wealthy, deeply, deeply afraid of being forced to pay their taxes. Not new taxes, just paying what they already owe, their fair share. And what they're doing is that they're willing to spend millions of dollars in lobbying in order to sink Biden's infrastructure plan. They say, no, 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 we don't care about rebuilding roads and bridges. If that means that we're going to actually have to pay our fair share of taxes, no, we don't care about fixing them. We don't want to build them unless, of course, we end up getting profit from it somehow. That's what's going on in this country. They're only out for themselves at the expense of the rest of us. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.